This leads to the idea of hubris.
You know, I'll be real with you, just to add a quick little note. That's kind of where we're at with Trump in a way, because like, think about it like this. If nobody's willing to call Trump out anytime, we're just willing to create any excuse for what he does, he's going to have a hubris because he knows, well, no matter what I do, even if it's anti-American or not American first and Israel first, I have a base that's going to support me no matter what. So he's going to have a hubris. At a certain point, Trump had the hubris to know that he can get into a war, even though he said no new wars, and he'll still have an entire base behind him talking about how war is good now.
Yeah,
that's dangerous.
And that's because people believe the illusion of their life. It's an illusion. It's not the reality. That's why people have problems with relationships and everything else, is because they want to believe the illusion that they've been programmed with instead of seeing the reality that's right in front of them.
All right, let's get back to it.
Okay? Hubris is just blindness to your own arrogance, a violent arrogance that makes you make silly mistakes, but you don't recognize your mistakes and you keep on repeating the same mistakes over and over again. So, yes, it seems like the empire is invincible, but if you actually think about it, the empire, its advantages becomes over time its disadvantages, which will lead ultimately to its downfall. Okay? So the mass leads to inequality, the organization leads to overproduction, which leads to factionalism, and death leads to hubris. That's why an empire must fall over time. But an empire cannot fall by itself. It needs an enemy that forces it to collapse. Okay? And so what happens is that an enemy will emerge that will overwhelm the empire because it is able to take advantage of the weaknesses of the empire, right? And so what are the weaknesses of this empire? Well, the first major weakness of this empire is that the people aren't really motivated. So if you people are really motivated, you have a huge advantage, okay? We call this energy. Right? Now, as an empire, you become insular. You refuse to admit your mistakes. You refuse to learn from others. Well, if you are willing to admit your mistakes, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to promote the best and brightest, if you're willing to be meritocratic, you have a huge advantage, okay? And so this is the idea of openness. The last idea is this. An empire, it's fractured. So if you're able to maintain cohesion, if people are able to remain united, if they're able to have a common purpose, they'll be strong, okay? So if an enemy of the empire emerges with these three qualities, energy, openness, and cohesion, this enemy will defeat the empire. Does that make sense? Okay. So what I want you to focus on as you follow the news in this war between the United States and Iran is ask yourself a question. Will Iran become an energetic, open, and cohesive society? Because if it does, it will become invincible. The empire won't change because of hubris. It's too static. It's too stagnant. It's too bureaucratic. So the empire won't change. The empire will not admit its own mistakes. And quite honestly, Iran, because it's still a country of 92 million people, it still suffers from issues of mass organization and death. And so if it's able to transform itself into an energetic, open, and cohesive society, then it will triumph over America. That is the fundamental question in this war, okay? Don't worry about America, its technology. Don't worry about the economy. Don't worry about these things, okay? Just ask yourself one question. Is Iran transforming as a society? Are people becoming much more motivated? Are people in Iran learning from their mistakes and innovating and becoming resilient on the battlefield? Are the Iranians sticking together as a people? Okay? Because if the answer is yes to all three questions, then Iran will win and America will lose. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. So that's just a theory.